If you carry a firearm and discharge your weapon in self-defense, you could face hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees and expenses. So carry the protection of CCW Safe, Self-Defense Legal Services membership. Upfront payment of all criminal and civil defense costs with no out-of-pocket for members.
And we are back. I'm Chris Evans, the CEO of Survival Dispatch, joined tonight by several of my good friends who are backstage right this minute. Our main topic tonight is going to be Venezuela and their history of supporting cartels, gangs, and jihadi terrorists, which goes back decades, by the way. However, before we do that, I promised my friends over at Vizsla Copper that I'd give them another shout out. So a couple of people reached out to me from last night and said, asked me what my thoughts were on this. And again, I'm not an investment guy. I'm not an investment expert or anything like that. I met them through Noble Gold. Noble Gold taught me a lot, and it's a really good way to go for your retirement. Vizsla is not targeted at your retirement, but they have found copper veins that are ginormous, and copper is in super short supply. It's not quite in the same category as rare earth minerals, but it's getting there. It's darn close. And every single electronic, everything that's electric period has copper in it. So I fully expect that copper is gonna skyrocket. How many times have you guys heard of, copper wiring being stolen that has already been installed in, houses that have been framed, but, haven't been finished out? It's incredible. It's why most of the plumbing you see these days isn't copper, whereas it always was, at least years gone by when I grew up. But with that being said, let me show you a couple things again. I'm probably going to mention this again on Monday because it's a solid opportunity. And I'm not going to mention names, but Mario, I'm telling you, brother, this is one for you. This is directly up your alley. So basically, at the end of the day, like I said, the copper supply chain is thin and getting thinner, whether it's grid equipment like substations, transformers, all the way down to everything in your house that you plug in. You got to have copper. No copper, no electronic devices. So I don't know why the media is not talking about this. I'm sure if you followed the money, you probably figure it out, but the governments are talking about it. So the deposits that these guys have found, let me find the map here. Check this out. So they found a silver vein, by the way, in Alaska. It took it to $1 billion in the blink of an eye. They now have these 4 or 5 copper deposits. Not only has the American government got behind this, but the Canadian government has as well. And they know a good thing clearly when they see it. And of course, they stand to make tons of money themselves. But the White House just released an immediate measures to increase American mineral production. And it's this one here is called the Palmer Project in Alaska in particular. What does that mean? It means fast tracked. It means that there's somewhere probably around $3.5 billion in copper and some other stuff, some zinc and other critical minerals, but to a far lesser extent than copper is concerned. What does this do for us, though? This means that we're less reliant on other countries, and China's already threatened multiple times that they're not going to ship rare earth minerals to us. And that doesn't play out well, and it's better to be self-sustaining. So at the end of the day, Vizsla, the company that was Vizsla Silver, now Vizsla Copper, has bought out this Palmer vein project, whatever you want to call it. And they're a multi-billion-dollar company now, thanks to that silver stuff that they did. But this is a great opportunity for you guys to make money. Anybody who's looking at retirement, yes, it's not a retirement-specific plan, but people like myself who work insane hours and want to be semi-retired by the time I hit 60 in a few years. So at the end of the day, if you click the link down below, you can read up on Vizsla Copper. There's all the different stock symbols for them are included up there. It's on one of these slides here. Forgive me for not having it memorized. But yeah, dang it, isn't that awful that I can't remember with the stock ticker, click the link down below. Check it out. If you're an investor and if you want to make money from something that's pretty much a sure bet, anytime the government gets behind somebody with their money, doesn't always mean the project's going to be successful, but it means that somebody is going to make some money off it. So with that being said, let's get into the main topic of the night. And golly, look who I just found backstage.
Oh, hey.
Oh,
So the rumors of Agent 711's demise have been greatly exaggerated. The return of
completely
Khalid.
exaggerated.
We're very glad to see that you're okay, Khalid, with everything that's going on over there.
No, it's been a rough week, Chris. It's been a rough week.
Man, we have been flooded with messages regarding you. People who are just genuinely concerned. So
I've tried to stay active on Signal, but it's just been a hell of a week, man. I mean, we've been moving so much. I can't even discuss where I am or where I'm not anymore, because we got hit again. I got a little bit of a knife wound the other day, so I'm kind of dealing with that.
Look at the comments in capitals, Khalid.
I see it. Yeah, I see it.
I mean, all of us, we care deeply about you, but just quickly, below Khalid, my good buddy Randy Nance, combat wounded Green Beret back home in Texas, and below me, Jeff MD, 26-year CIA case officer, author extraordinaire. Khalid, tell us, back up a little bit in the story for the people who don't know this. You had 4 safe houses, none of which had ever been breached before, and 3 of them
hit the
same night.
All hit at the same time. We got video. We've looked at the video. We figured out who they were. We have been on a massive killing spree. We're somewhere around 250 now that we have taken out. We have been on both sides of the border, both in Afghanistan and here in Pakistan. We're leaving no stone unturned. We're going to find everybody behind it. But I've also found out in the last 48 hours that there are 3 intelligence warrants out for me from different foreign intelligence agencies because of the 9/11 2.0 conversation.
Very interesting. Not surprised, but
yeah,
very interesting for sure. I honestly, at this point, and maybe you can correct me, but I don't know anybody who's done any, let's say, publication of 9/11 2.0 stuff in volume that hasn't been threatened. But
I got a guy on our Twitter earlier, on our X account earlier, who had literally just made his account maybe a couple of days ago. 21 followers. He's following you as well, Chris. He's following Sarah. And he put a comment under one of my tweets, under one of the retweets that I did on one of Sarah's tweets, and said, "Are you guys pushing some kind of a fake narrative?" And I went, "Block and you're gone."
Right on. Golly. So, all right, let's hit the conflicted question before we jump into the main topic. Let me make sure I get all the boys back up on stage here. So if you're not familiar with this, conflictedthegame.com, there's 14 card decks set in post-apocalyptic settings. 99% of the questions have some element of morality to them, hence the name Conflicted. I'm going to read the question now. We'd love to see y'all's answers in the live chat or the comment section below. The 4 of us will give you our answers at the end of this broadcast. Samantha's patience was at an end. She was surrounded by capable men that were unwilling to help her. She wanted her husband found at any cost. What could you do to convince others to risk their lives for your sake? That's an interesting question for sure, especially in a post-apocalyptic world that's often referred to as WROL, world without rule of law, or, Teotihuacan, the end of the world as we know it. Basically, Walking Dead, maybe minus the fake zombies, real zombies, but minus the fake zombies. So with that being said, I've got a handful of news items for us to cover. And Cleet, I don't know if you caught it, but I took your 3 articles on Venezuela and Iran and all those connections. And we're going to bridge the sit rep over to the main topic by using your 3 articles. So get your lungs warmed up here, because you're going to have to explain all 3 of them. And they're great articles. But the first one up here is Minnesota, early 2000s, multiple Somali businesses raided and shut down by feds for using it to funnel money to Osama bin Laden's Al-Qaeda terrorist network. This has been going on for decades. 1 minute, 28 seconds. Volume is super low. I'm going to put the link to this in the chat just because that's so low.
This apartment complex at 2100 Bloomington Avenue South in Minneapolis. A block away from the first raid.
I'm going to go ahead and stop that because I can barely hear it. What about you guys, Khalid?
Barely can hear it.
Okay, so I put the link in the live chat. I don't want to waste anybody's time. It played fine earlier today. I'm not sure why it's not playing very well right now. But, oh, geez, I got to get the boys up on this stage as well. There we go. Apologies for that. Jeff, your thoughts on the situation in Minneapolis in particular? It's almost as advanced as Dearborn now.
Well, yeah, it is. It's just the Somali version. Yeah, the Somalis and Al-Shabaab in particular have been Al-Qaeda adjacent for decades. So the fact that they would be raising money for Al-Qaeda or ISIS or any of those groups is no shock. You got to remember bin Laden, before he went to Afghanistan, his base of operations was in Somalia. Well, Sudan, Somalia, that is the Horn of Africa. They kind of went back and forth.
Yeah, interesting. Years ago, we were on our way to Lino Lakes, Minnesota, just north of Minneapolis. And I can't remember what the loop is, but we had a 35-foot fifth wheel trailer behind us full of race machines. I used to have a factory sponsored snowmobile grass drag team. So not ice drags, grass drags, because in the wintertime, everybody's already bought their high performance snowmobiles. In the summertime, they want to come out and watch you tear it up on the grass. And then that convinces them to what wins on Sunday sells on Monday. So we were on our way to, it's called Hay Days, by the way, in Lino Lakes, Minnesota. So, and this year that year we set a world record, by the way, 5.05 seconds, 108 miles per hour out the back door, 500 feet on the grass. So pretty crazy stuff. But my buddy Chris Sanders was driving, and this car cut us off. And I look over, we were in a big Suburban. I look over and I went, fucking terrorists. And he said, what are you talking about? I said, these fucking, sort of thing. And he said, oh, you're being racist. I said, no, I'm not. That was 1999, by the way. Within 10 minutes of the second plane hitting the second tower on 9/11, he called me. He's like, fuck, man, I apologize. You were right. I said, what are you talking about? He says, well, you remember when we were in Minneapolis and you called those guys fucking terrorists? So, and anyway, Khalid, I'm going to come to you just to get your opinion on the Somali angle. This is all woven so tightly together now.
It is. I mean, look, Somalia has been connected with Al-Qaeda and Al-Shabaab for so many decades now. We just had the expose come out of Minnesota that so much of the welfare money, so much of the SNAP money was being funneled to Al-Shabaab for decades now. It's sad to hear it because, that's good, hardworking American taxpayer money that should be going to help Americans. And it's being given to illegals who are pumping it to terrorists who are planning on coming and attacking the U.S. And anyone who's caught like that should literally be put down like a dog. That's just it's a clean, simple statement. You had to expect it from me, Chris. Come on.
You're on mute.
You're on mute, man. You're on mute, Chris.
Sorry, I was drinking my coffee there. Sorry. Yeah, some things never change. It's great. I love it. So, Randy, what's happened in Dearborn and Minneapolis has been happening in Irving and other parts of the Metroplex, and it's getting pretty crazy. What was the number you threw out there a night ago with the number of mosques that have been open in the Metroplex? And now it's like some stupid number.
We could probably ask Jeff. He was on that show, but I know it's man. When I saw the diagram, I couldn't believe the amount of mosques that are in this area now. It's crazy. It was well over. I would say there was 30, 40, might even be 50.
It was big. I mean, it's
over 50.
It's a lot. I didn't realize that, but when I saw that map, I was like, oh.
Yeah.
And I was thinking on that story is, because they had to find one, and I don't know if it was you or whoever found this story. They had to go back to the early 2000s. to find the federal government actually doing what it's supposed to do in that area. Because ever since Obama got elected, we haven't seen any of that. Because if they were doing it right now, that might make a change, a difference.
Agreed. Yeah, totally agreed. It's insanity. So next one up here, this is from Mike Davis. This is a grave injustice. We have a God-given right to self-defense, including the right to keep and bear arms, is doubly guaranteed by the Second Amendment. This hero should get a medal, not imprisoned. Queens senior citizen who fatally shot would-be mugger headed to prison for 4 years. So this is in, what are we calling it now? New Yorkistan or something like that? This guy's going to jail for defending himself. I mean, here's your chance to, rant a little bit on the Second Amendment here, Randy.
Yeah.
You're up.
Well, I mean, dude, how old do you say the guy is?
67.
What do you think he's going to do if somebody breaks in and he's got a gun? I would too at 60. Hell, I'd do it right now.
No, it was on the street.
Oh, it was on the street?
Walking down the street and the guy came up to him.
But regardless, if there's video and he's defending himself, what do we, again, this is the United States of America. It's supposed to be. And that was probably before,
Well, I would add to that, Randy, that there's this thing called disparity of force. And the good states recognize that. So you have a 67-year-old guy being accosted by a younger,
probably 20 or 30 tops.
Yeah. I mean, what do you expect?
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's exactly what I would expect. And you should be allowed to do that. For one, it's not the old man's fault. All he was doing was what all the rest of us want to do. He's probably going somewhere in the middle of his day and just wanted to, live his life and be left alone.
Yeah. So Khalid, I mean, you grew up here. You're intimately familiar with the Second Amendment. We don't have like the Second Amendment / BFE clause, but we got the rest of it, Just
we're going to pass the BFE clause. We're going to pass the BFE clause.
So when the states are completely balkanized, and we have basically all these different countries fighting here in America, you're going to push for the BFE clause amongst the.
Of course, yeah. It's the first thing I'm going to do when I get back to the U.S. Start campaigning for a BFE law. I mean, come on. Some people need to be put down. That's it. It just needs to be done.
The beautiful part of this, Khalid, is if Randy, Jeff, or I said that, we would instantly be tagged KKK, racist, whatever. But you saying it, we can actually laugh about it and not worry. But what are they going to say? The guy from Pakistan's racist against other minorities,
against other people. Like, give it a break. Look. I have always been a believer in self-defense. The problem with most people is they don't believe in lethal force. They'll keep a gun. They agree with the Second Amendment. They should be allowed to keep their arms, but they will not go to lethal force. What's the point of having the gun if you're not going to go to lethal force to protect yourself and your family? That never made sense to me. And for me, because of where I live, the whole point of having a weapon is to protect your family. And lethal force is something we understand very clearly here.
Well, so our friend Dave Kemp, John Wheaton's partner in Righteous Savages, they have a gun range. He's a SWAT team leader, etc. We had a long conversation on being stabbed versus being shot. And his statistics, and I have no reason to doubt him, is that if you get shot, you have a 95% chance of survival. Whereas if you get stabbed once, it's 50%. You get stabbed 2 or more times, it's less than 5%. And he said, go ahead and shoot me. Just don't stab me, sort of thing. So these ones where somebody, it's terminal and somebody ends up DRT, that's not the norm when you get shot. So, but it stops the assault at least.
Look, I mean, even the sound of a bullet going off, the sound of a gun going off will cause a lot of resistance on whoever's trying to come into the house. You don't get that with a knife. I mean, you've literally got to connect with the knife to get somebody to leave the house. Someone just firing a gun off in the house, and somebody goes, "Oh shit, they've got a weapon. Get the hell out of here before we get shot." I'm a firm believer in what the Second Amendment really says: keep and bear arms. Use those weapons for self-defense. They're not there for show.
I mean, it varies state to state. All 50 states have the Castle Doctrine, but some are different interpretations. So some of the states are really fucked up, and they have this thing called the Fair Fight Doctrine. And it's the same thing as the disparity of force, right? So scumbag breaks into your home, he has a baseball bat, you shoot him, you're getting charged with homicide if you kill him. Whereas if you bash his brains in with a baseball bat, that was even Steven, which is total, absolutely total, just BS. But we're fortunate, like Randy and I are super fortunate to have stand your ground, really strong stand your ground laws. I'm not sure where Arizona is, but Jeff's going to tell us, as well as castle doctrine. So, Jeff, go ahead.
Well, no, I was just going to say on this case, he's not going to jail for shooting the guy. He's going to jail because he had a boatload of unregistered weapons in his home. He even said, I'm a collector. He had ARs, AKs, hunting rifles, a bunch of pistols, and I guess he only had state permission for 5 guns, and he had something like 15. He shot the guy with a .38 revolver, Smith & Wesson .38, standard little pistol.
Gotcha.
But when they went to his home and they found 8 million other guns, which he didn't have permits for, that's what he went to jail for, not shooting the guy.
Well, the fact though that they searched his home, fuck them. What the hell's that got to do with
That's
anything?
exactly right.
Why
question.
Why are you coming inside my fucking house? I was assaulted and had to shoot some guy.
Well, I'm
just
saying what I read in the New York Post this morning.
Yeah, fair enough. Did Khalid or Randy, did you guys want to weigh in on that?
I just think it's bullshit.
Yeah, they had no right to go to you. Have a gun shooting on the street. What are you going to my house and searching my house for? If the shooting was in my home, then yeah, search my house for weapons. But if it was on the street, if I have a registered pistol with me on the street, then you have no right to go to my home.
100%.
Well, I don't know that maybe he voluntarily gave them permission to search with his dome.
Can you imagine?
But he admitted, he said, yeah, I shot the guy. He came at me. He had something in his hand. I thought it was a knife. And the guy had a long rap sheet. I mean, this wasn't some, kid walking home from the grocery store. This was a criminal who had been busted numerous times for violent crimes and robberies. So he killed the right guy.
That's a whole other thing. Randy, feel free to comment on it. But these judges are letting these guys out with 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 fucking assault charges. They deserve to be put in jail next to the guy that they're letting go free. Randy, I don't know if you want to touch on it from that angle, but it's all you.
I'm just saying, you know what I mean? I'm with Archangel there. The Second Amendment provides all the protection. It didn't matter if he had 1,000 guns in his house.
Oh.
Now, I get it. The New York has put the state is where you got a permit. And believe me, one of my bosses at SOCOM, he was the original director of the CARE Coalition, which when I got there, I was the 17th person. And when I left, there were 70 worldwide for that organization. His dad passed away in New York. The stuff he had to go through to get the guns, some of them he didn't even get because they have these particular laws there that, they will register him that you can't take them out of the state, but he also couldn't give them away. I mean, it was ridiculous stuff. And I was just thinking, none of that is really legal by the Constitution, no matter what New York wants to say. And I get about you having that large of a population. But one, as we already mentioned, unless that guy said, yeah, sure, come on to my house and search it. But why would he do that? They had no right to go in the guy's home because he shot somebody on the street.
Totally.
And then to fully put him in jail because he doesn't have all those weapons permitted is a bunch of crap.
Yeah. Well, Archangel, I agree with this comment big time. Our founding fathers didn't want people to own just one weapon. They wanted them to have a damn arsenal.
Well, it's a fact.
That is a fact. Yeah. Absolutely. So moving on to the next one, I don't have an update on this. I meant to circle back on it, and I wish I had. Maybe somebody in the audience could do me a favor here, but this was earlier today. Breaking: one deputy killed, 2 others shot, serving eviction notice in Vero Beach, Florida.
Oh, dang.
Says the Indian River County Sheriff's Office, about 100 miles south of here. I know the one who died was the female, but there were 2 guys in addition to that were shot. This is just 15 seconds of cars going by. But there's no sense of playing the whole thing. There's no information revealed there. But if anybody in the audience has any additional information on this, please share it in the live chat again, because I just didn't have time to go back to it. But Khalid, I'm coming to you next here. This was the first article that you put up on deaddropintel.org. You, Mike Glover, and other Intel experts. And it's called The Narcotics and terror nexus between IRGC and Latin America. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so people can see it. Go to deaddropintel.org, by the way, and you can read all of Cleed's articles there. Pardon me, but I'm going to pass it back to you, Cleed. Let's start with this first one and give us the Cliff Notes version.
Well, the first article, we've done 3 parts so far. We've got 2 more parts left to do because the last 2 parts are really detailed and I can't do it in 1 part. So I broke it into 2 parts. The first part was basically understanding how Iran had been able to piggyback off of what Hezbollah had done through the 90s and set up their own networks so they could launder money, they could run drugs, they could train people, they could influence governments. How they had set up their laundering systems, how they'd set up how to smuggle oil. The first part literally just lays out the structure of exactly how the system runs. The second part we went through and we explained in quite a bit of detail how IRGC had sidestepped all the economic sanctions that are against them. And you have to keep in mind in Iran, you have 2 different systems that run. You have the mullahs, who are the quote unquote government. And then you have the IRGC, which is the actual real government. They control what happens in Iran. And the most dangerous part of the IRGC is the Quds Force, which is what Qasem Soleimani was the head of. And that's who runs asymmetric warfare. So what they did is they ran with Hezbollah and they took all of Hezbollah's networks and all of Hezbollah's drug trade and said, okay, let us in. Let us work with you. Let us move our people into play. Let's get some Lebanese people that are now Venezuelan citizens, put money behind them, get them elected to office, use them as business people, and let them transfer money to Lebanon, let them transfer money to other countries. And really interesting thing that people need to understand is one of the key checkpoints in the laundering operation is the UAE. Which a lot of people would not realize is that the UAE is one of the key laundering points of where Iran's running their money through. $300 million is what they're generating a month from oil they're smuggling through Venezuela alone. The amount of weaponry they're moving through Venezuela, the training camps they have there, they actually have Venezuelans, the cartels being trained in Iran as well, and then going back to Venezuela to fight. It's the handshake between both it's just unbelievable. And for me,
let me ask Jeff 2 quick questions and then hand it right back to you. Jeff, how are they moving this money and it being undetected, or are they moving it through SWIFT and they don't give a shit that it's being detected?
Well, if it's being moved under a legitimate business, oil, the thing about oil is what we call fungible. Okay. Nobody cares where it came from once it hits the tanker. Gotcha. It's like gold is fungible. There's no way to say, well, that's Iranian gold versus Swiss gold. No, it's just gold. Okay. And yeah, you can look at oil and kind of figure out where it came from, but once it's at sea on board a ship, then you take it to what they're probably doing with Venezuela. And the Russians did this for a while, not for the same reasons. Venezuela's oil is super, super thick. Okay. It is so thick, they have to heat it just to pump it. And so to sell it and to refine it, you need to cut it with something a lot thinner. They used to buy naphthalene from the US to mix with their crude oil so it would flow through the frickin' pipes and then you would get Russian light crude, mix it with Venezuelan super heavy crude, and so that they could get it on a chip and then get it and pump it, and a refinery could refine it. There are a handful of refineries can handle it as it is, but almost everybody, lightens it up. They were trying to buy Eagle Ford shale oil, which is really, really light. They wanted to buy that so they could mix it and we wouldn't sell it to them.
Interesting.
So they're probably using light Iranian crude to mix with their super heavy. So then it's a mix. And once it hits the market, it's, nobody knows where it came from.
Second question is just a really fast one. Then I'm coming right back to you, Cleed. Don Mann, who, you served with at the CIA, and, we've done the, Surviving Man TV show and whatnot. He said to me, I want to say about 3 years ago, that in the mid 1990s that we were tracking somewhere around 300 Hezbollah in America in the 90s. This has been going on a long time, is all I just want you to confirm that this has been going on a long time.
It's been going on for decades.
Yeah. Okay.
Hezbollah are the old school Lebanese businessmen who are all over the world, and they just got in that pipeline. That's why they're in West Africa, they're in South America. Anywhere you would find a Lebanese businessman, you will now find a Hezbollah Lebanese businessman.
Right on. Thanks. So, Khalid, before you carry on, just answer one more question for our audience so that they're clear on this. What's the difference between Hezbollah in the Middle East and Hezbollah Unit 910, which is not one unit, but is global and outside of the immediate sphere of Iran?
Hezbollah Middle East is the kinetic arm of the Hezbollah. They're the ones that fight all the wars against Israel and against Lebanon and against everybody else. Hezbollah Unit 910 is the international arm that generates the funds. They will smuggle drugs, they will smuggle money, they will smuggle gold, they will traffic human beings, whatever they need to do to generate funds. And what the interesting part in when you start reading in the articles that we put together, when you start to understand the levels that you have working, you have very wealthy Lebanese, Venezuelan businessmen that are frontmen for Hezbollah and for IRGC. And what they're doing is they're using their business to transfer money to Dubai, then to Lebanon. It gets washed, and then it goes to Iran. And the trace on that is impossible. Once it hits Dubai, it's gone. You don't even know what happened to it at that point, because it goes into a very different system from there. And Hawala works really well. Iran they were looking basically at how do we get around economic sanctions, and they couldn't sell any of their products outside of Iran. So what they did is they put together a unit of friendly states, and it was those friendly states as they started working with that they started selling oil to. They started moving drugs from Afghanistan to anything they could move that they could generate money off of. And it's basically the tri-border area, Colombia, Venezuela, and I believe it's Brazil, that is the core area of operations for Hezbollah in that area. Okay. And on the Iran side, you've got 3 training camps just outside of Tehran. You've got 2 training camps that are near the ocean. And then you've got 2 more training camps that are way up in the north that very few people know about. But I think it's the next part. We'll give you a map with all the training camps as well, so you know where all the camps are on top of this. But the problem is, Chris, that the U.S. government has been playing hands off on this for too long. And what it's ended up with, and part of the reason why the U.S. is so interested in hitting Venezuela right now, narco-terrorism is a big, big play. And Iran has been moving people in and out of Mexico and the U.S. very easily because of that. And unless you hit their camps, you're going to have a problem very, very soon because of these people that are going to move in.
Let me just ask you this, and then I'm going to go to Randy. But is it possible that the Trump administration, which has not been doing a good job as far as counterterrorism coming from Africa and the Middle East is concerned, is it possible they're looking at this as a 2-for-1 in Venezuela, that they can, put the hurt on Venezuela and then the cartels, TDA, and then on the other side, put the hurt on Hezbollah and therefore weaken Iran? Is that kind of semi-plausible?
The thought process has to be there. I mean, anyone who's got half a brain's got to be thinking that, because since the 90s, Hezbollah is there, and it's a big favor to Israel to take out Hezbollah there, because that takes away a huge funding arm. But the problem is the options in Venezuela and who takes over in place of Maduro aren't great. The woman who won the Nobel Peace Prize has on numerous occasions tried to carry out a coup and overthrow the narco-terror government, but she's got nothing better to offer. So I mean, you're caught between a rock and a hard place in what you do in Venezuela.
Jeff can speak to this. If she's not a bus driver, she can't get the job.
That's right. She has two brain cells to rub together.
Hold on a second. I'm going to Randy here, but explain the joke that I just made for the people who might not get it.
Maduro, before he was president, or actually before he was vice president, was quite literally a bus driver. And then he went up to the bus drivers union, and that's how he got into the government. So yeah, he is nothing against bus drivers, but he is not the brightest bulb.
Well, yeah, but bus drivers are apparently a lot more powerful than I thought, at least since I got out of the 8th grade. You know?
Yeah. Well, yeah, he's there because they can manipulate him and because he's pliable. He's not there because he's a grand thinker. Castro, love him or hate him, got the big picture. Maduro, not so much.
Yeah, fair enough.
Maduro's still painting with crayons. He doesn't even know what paint is yet.
Too funny. Randy, I'm curious, in any of your deployments, did you ever encounter Hezbollah anywhere, or was it just the other bad guys? Not just, but
No, yeah. So my day was, the last time I was in theater as a operator was December of 2006.
Okay.
So you didn't even hear that name, period.
Interesting.
In Iraq, period. Okay. Now, I don't know, in Afghanistan, they probably did, but I can't speak to that.
Yeah.
I was going to say about the bus
we haven't
thing.
Been
yeah. I was going to say about the bus thing. The ironic thing is, Jeff's right, because, when you go to the Army or the military, period, doesn't matter what service, but I was in the Army, so we're going to use it. And you take your little ASVAB test, right? That score tells the military what your range is of jobs. And everybody thinks that the lowest score goes in the infantry, right? Which is not true. In fact, now I will admit, in the infantry, you do have some of the dumbest guys, but you also have some of the most intelligent guys. So it kind of evens out. But believe it or not, there is one job in the military that you can score lower and still get that job. Now, it's not a bus driver, but I'm sure they'd let him drive a bus, but it is the fueler. He drives the fuel tanks. So,
oh shit. All right.
Wow.
We learned something new every day. I appreciate that, Randy. Seriously, I did not know that. So we're going to go ahead and just pivot right from here into the main topic. They dovetail together quite nicely. So basically, Venezuela under Maduro, the bus driver, has become, probably the premier terror hub in the Western Hemisphere, is what I would, size him up as. And he's essentially an Iranian proxy, right? And the Iranians and their money and the IRGC are behind this. Hezbollah are, Unit 910 are their boots on the ground, so to speak. And Khalid has gone to great lengths recently to explain the connection between Hezbollah, the IRGC on the funding side, but the cartels and the gangs like TDA on the other side, call it on the tactical side. And all of them, of course, the enemy of my enemies, a friend of mine, definitely comes into play here. But it's a convergence of, state-sponsored terrorism, organized crime, gang violence, jihadis. I don't know how to describe it other than it's a truly an unholy alliance that poses a very clear and present danger to America. And I mean, here's the thing. I got an email from someone. I'm not going to say if it's male or female, but their spouse said, I don't want to hear any of this crap about 9/11 2.0. I don't believe it. And I wrote a fairly lengthy response to it. It was fairly detailed, but I always come back to the same thing. If you think our southern border was wide open for 4 years and millions of people came into the country and that they're all good people and none of them are seeking retribution, none of them are seeking to, commit acts of terrorism on us, boy, howdy. I mean, you're in for a shock. Probably not the sharpest knife in the drawer if you can't connect those really, really simple, dots. So anyway, we've got this buildup now in Puerto Rico. We've got all kinds of ships there. We've got the Gerald Ford aircraft carrier and everything that goes with it. And of course, we've been plucking off these, narco boats, trafficking drugs into the country. And it was good to see, by the way, the Supreme Court this week, for anybody who didn't catch it, ruled in Donald Trump's favor, the administration's favor, saying he could absolutely, go after those boats and the narco terrorists, which is one of a few wins for us, put it that way. But Khalid, I'm going to come to you first here on this. How does, like, let's hone in a little bit here on Guyana, because there's the center, kind of a center point in this conflict that's happening right now. What does it say about Maduro using gangs, specifically the TDA, as his first, mission, his first wave of, larger scale kinetic confrontation?
Well, it's when you look at these smaller countries that don't have the powerful militaries that like the US, Russia, China, these countries have, they have to always work from an asymmetric warfare point of view. And I think I said this in the chat. I'm not sure where I said it at, but every target that exists for the US inside of Venezuela has an equal and comparatively very heavily responsive attack inside the US, whether it be TDA, whether it be MS-13, whether it be a Mexican cartel. Everything you have targeted in the US, because there's a proper map out of every target in Venezuela that the US is looking at, from low to medium to high. And the same targeting map that we're looking at for Venezuela, they're looking at for the US. And this goes back to what we said back in October, that IRGC, TDA, and Antifa are working together to carry out a complex coordinated terror attack inside the US. Because Maduro saw this coming. He knew Trump was going to take action against him. He knew it was coming. And when he knew it was coming, he called his friends back in Tehran and said, okay, listen, we need a response of some kind. And Tehran went, well, we're very good at this stuff. We know how to play asymmetric. We've done this before. Let's work this out. Where can they hit? And what is what we call in military context is the response, the measured response that we would take as a nation state. What they're looking at is a nation state much higher than that. And they're looking at, if you hit one of their oil fields, for example, they're looking to hit a major city of yours.
So before I go to Jeff, just a quick question, Khalid. Would it be accurate, or at least semi-accurate, to describe Antifa as useful idiots to the other ones? Because they're nowhere near sophisticated. I mean, these are dweebs, most of them. Violent dweebs, but still dweebs.
Antifa is literally the useful idiot in this case, because they will do anything for money. I mean, their idea is, well, if we can overthrow this government, we'll be able to do what we want to do. And everyone else is going, yeah, we'll throw money at you to be stupid. We're more than happy to do that. And if your body's small, it doesn't affect us. Because the guys that we've trained to fight, that's the second line. That's when the U.S. gets serious and decides they're going to roll out forces against us. That's when the cartels move forward.
Gotcha.
Antifa is just something you can lay bodies out. That's not even a concern for them.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate that clarification. So, Jeff, I was just looking at my notes here, and I actually was going to come to you first on the I'm sure I'm going to pronounce this wrong, but the Essequibo flashpoint in Guyana. If you could just explain that.
Yeah, there's an oil field that kind of crosses the border. Most of it's in Guyana, and it's in the process of being developed. I think ExxonMobil signed a deal with the Guyanese government to develop the oil field. But what Maduro has done is he says, well, that's really our oil field. And even though it's in your country, but he's basically claiming, yeah, you're putting a straw on the ground. All the oil you pull out is really ours. It comes from our side of the border, which is total horseshit. But he's looking for, one, more money, because I think that oil is easier to sell than the stuff they have. It's not as heavy, not as thick.
Okay.
And it's a rallying point to get his people distracted from how horrible things are at home. So he wants to start a war with a neighbor and get that patriotic rah-rah spirit going.
Okay.
But what he's going to do is going to draw himself into a war with us because, even, we've said for years, if you're looking at Guyana, don't even think about it. They're their own country. They're a separate nation. And, they're an English-speaking nation for the most part, too. It was British Guyana. And we're not going to stand back and just let you go in and take it. And that's why they haven't done anything yet, because, we've moved battle groups down there before saying, we will blow the crap out of you if you invade Guyana.
Okay.
Not that Guyana is anything big to us, but we just don't want this thug going around bullying all of his neighbors and, taking their shit. It's very similar to when Iraq invaded Kuwait.
Yep.
It wasn't that, they did that whole, it's the 25th province or whatever it was. No, they owed Kuwait a shit ton of money, and they didn't want to pay back the money they owed, and they wanted to take their oil fields.
Okay. I appreciate that. So, Randy, I'm curious what your thoughts are. Do you think that Maduro is going to double down on this and get his ass kicked? Like, is Maduro and his, call it cabal, so stupid that they think that, they've got the balls bigger than the brain syndrome that they can take us on and just get their ass handed to them? Or do you think he's just posturing?
I would say, since he's already made the commitment, now I don't know the guy from anybody, right? But
yeah.
I would say, since he's already made the commitment, he's probably going to double down until because we don't have boots on the ground, right? We got ships out there and people are waiting, of course, but there's no boots on the ground. So there's nothing to stop him still at this point, I would say. And if we just look at history, generally that's what happens. Because when people do this, whether it was Saddam or him, they're not in their right mind anymore. And they only see what they see, and they want to take what they want to take, which they think is theirs. And then they just go do it. So I would assume this guy's going to continue.
I agree. I think that's what's going to happen as well. So next question is more specific to your background and training. So the IRGC are not only well funded, but as all three of you can attest to, they're very well trained. It's not like these are a bunch of hoodlums sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
And so the IRGC has trained and equipped and financed Hezbollah. Then Hezbollah goes out, Unit 910. They take that with them. They go find their own sources of money, like drug dealing or large scale drug trafficking, I should say. What are the chances in your mind that the Hezbollah guys trained by the IRGC are now training cartel members and gang members? Because if you look at the pictures from a few years ago, you see this lineup in this video of, say, 100 cartel guys, and not one of them has the same fucking weapon. I mean, this is War 101. Everybody carries the same caliber, so you can pick up magazines and ammo. Very, very disjointed. But I want to hear your thoughts on that from a few years ago versus what we are facing today in these guys.
Well, I think it's like what we've been saying all along, right? They've gotten a lot more professional training and have become quite professional themselves. And, it's what we all do. It's human nature. And it's certainly what you mentioned earlier, right? The enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Yeah.
So you're going to collaborate. That's what happens. In the IRGC, I would assume where they probably started was folks that we were actually training. And I'm talking about the United States Special Forces. It's probably where it started, because we didn't really make jokes of it. We weren't really lighthearted, but everybody, when we were training these guys all the time, we were like, what are the odds that when we leave here, these guys turn into bad guys, and the next time we come back, it'll be these guys that we already trained? And, that's exactly what's happened.
Yeah.
People could say what they want, but draw your own lines. It's pretty obvious to me. And, I would say that, the chances of them that they're collaborating and training with the cartels, 100%. They're both passing back. Both of them have knowledge that the other didn't have in other different ways, because as you talked about, and even the terrorists were back then, were just like the cartels. They were ragtag armies, if you want to call them that, but they pieced together everything, and now everything is all same. Well, again, that takes training, but also takes organization. It takes money, and it takes somebody selling them those weapons. So,
Okay.
them training, absolutely they are. There's no doubt about it. And as Khalid was talking about earlier, when the EFPs hit the battlefield, the explosively formed projectiles hit the ground in Iraq. It was Al-Qut, it was Al-Samani, whatever his name is. They were the ones directly responsible. And what they did first was give some of them away. And then they took some of those metal shop workers and other people that worked with metal and brought them back to Iran, and like on a 6-month rotation, kind of trained them how to do it and then sent them back. So I guarantee you that's exactly what they're doing now with the Venezuelans.
Very good connecting the dots there, by the way, Randy. Appreciate that. So we're going to move on to segment number 2, which is the narco terror pipeline and Maduro's Cartel de los Sols as the regime's lifeline. I probably didn't pronounce that right, but whatever. So on the heels of, these November 2025 indictments that we've got against, various cartel members, etc. These guys, the Cartel de los Sols, are Maduro's, call it, inner circle drug runners. And, we slapped them in the face by declaring them FTOs, foreign terrorist organizations, and exposed how they've teamed up with other cartels like the Sinaloa cartel, what's left over from FARC, which I'm going to leave that to Jeff to explain who FARC is, but they were like a far left-wing communist, player, for lack of a better term, in Central America for years. But they've got a cash cow going here on multiple different fronts. And that cash is what's propping up all of these things that the regime is the right word, but this regime is doing. You take away the money, you take away their ability to do these things. They're stockpiling gear, all kinds of stuff. And they've got enough already stockpiled that this Essequibo, confrontation could really turn into a flashpoint, as Jeff already mentioned. So basically, we're trying to tighten the noose financially, right? Like we always do, like asset freezes and not allowing money to transfer through legit processes like the SWIFT network, those sort of things. And what's happening, and from my perspective, and I'll let you guys speak to this, I think Maduro's leaning even harder on his narco buddies now than he did in the past. And he's kind of like blending cartel muscle with gang proxies to make any of these confrontationals bigger, bolder, bloodier, whatever you want to call them. So, Khalid, I'm going to come to you first. So with this Cartel de los Sols now tagged as terrorists, FTOs, how does the extra cash from, the cocaine deals, beef up Maduro's options in this, it's a stare down right now, right? With Guyana. What are your thoughts though on that cocaine money?
Look at let's take this in pieces. You've got cocaine coming from Colombia. You've got synthetic drugs coming from Venezuela, which is cocaine mixed with MDMA mixed with ketamine, which is being processed and pushed into the US. You've got drugs coming from Afghanistan through Iran into Venezuela and into the US from there. The amount of stockpile that Maduro's got to work with to generate funds from is just unbelievable. I don't know if you saw the tweet we put out earlier on TDA in Spain, where they had 2 labs in early this month. They had 2 labs in Barcelona that were generating synthetic drugs and selling them to the people in Barcelona in the clubs. They were trafficking Venezuelan women to Spain and selling them there in the prostitution rings. I mean, wow. the way the tiers of money generation is coming from Maduro, everything is on the table for him. He will sell his people. He will sell drugs. He will sell oil. He will do whatever he needs to do to prop himself up. Add on top of that Iran is more than happy to give you weapons if you're going to fight the US. And we saw a picture the other day, and this bugged me a lot. I saw a picture from Venezuela where the Venezuelan military had Israeli and US weapons. And that kind of made me go, whoa, which arms dealer is supplying them with weapons?
Do we have an answer to that?
Not yet. We're asking questions now. We put the picture out on our network, and we're trying to figure out where those weapons came from, because Iran can't buy Israeli weapons. They could have gotten U.S. weapons from Afghanistan, but the Israeli weapons couldn't come from that. Now, the other thing you have to look at is Iran has a very close relationship with India, and India is very close with Israel. Now, there's a possibility they bought weapons from India and moved those through into Venezuela.
It's what a tangled web we weave. Jeff, just for posterity's sake, can we go back in time a little bit, and can you explain FARC and the evolution when FARC was created to where we are today? Because it's been quite a journey. You're on mute, Jeff.
It's the Spanish acronym for the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia.
Okay.
They are a traditional, old school Marxist revolutionary group. They'd been around since the 60s, I think. And while they were originally, when narco trafficking became a big deal, they were against it. They quickly figured out they could make money on it. And so they were doing protection for, drug labs in the jungles and things like that. They were all but pretty much wiped out in the early 2000s. There was I can't remember the name of the president of Brazil, got elected. He was right wing. He was, he kind of really went to town against both the cartels and the FARC. And we were helping with that. CIA's been dealing with the FARC for decades as well. But they are definitely involved in the drug trade, and a lot of times it's providing protection to drug routes and smugglers. And that some of that goes out through Venezuela because, again, friendly country to them. And Venezuela needs the money because, Maduro needs money to buy the loyalty of his military. And their oil production numbers are way down. At one point, they were, I want to say, 2 or 3 million, maybe even 4 million barrels a day. And now they're less. They got down to like 600,000 barrels a day. And I think they're around 800,000 barrels a day now. Their infrastructure is in horrible shape. They kicked out all the Western companies that were keeping things running. And so it's really kind of limping along, and they don't get top dollar for their oil because it is so heavy and so sour. It's got so much sulfur in it that they have to offer it at a steep discount.
So let me ask you, if we hit these cartels hard, like this one in particular in Venezuela, but other ones, I read somewhere a couple times actually that Maduro would probably pivot to TDA, Tren de Aragua, and have them bring the drugs into America instead of the cartels because they're so opportunistic. They'll work with anybody. I mean, they have no loyalty to anybody. Is there any legs to that or not? I mean, do they have the infrastructure to even import this volume of drugs?
Yeah, where there's money, people will come up with infrastructure. They'll figure it out. And I see him depending more on the Tren de Aragua because, one, he's got more influence with them because they are a Venezuelan gang. And, so he can, if he's got influence, he can tell them what to do and they'll probably listen. And
didn't he let them all out of penal?
Yeah, the gang basically started inside Venezuelan prisons.
And then he let them out and said, the border's open, go to the U.S.
Yeah, and he took that lesson from Castro. For the Mariel boat lift. He just basically emptied his prisons and his insane asylums and said, Florida's that way. And because he does that, then they owe him a certain amount of loyalty because he let them out of prison, but their families are all back in Venezuela. Okay. So, they've got to keep him happy because he can always crack down on, mom and dad if he wanted to. But they're making money and, they're businessmen. If they can work with Maduro and make money, they'll work with Maduro.
Yeah, that makes sense. Just a couple quick things I wanted to mention. So you probably didn't catch it today, Jeff, because of the insane volume messages that go through all of our signal channels. But I saw 3 times somebody made a comment. I'm paraphrasing a little bit. Jeff knows everything. Those 3 words. I saw it in the.
Jeff does not know everything. Trust me. And if you don't believe me, just ask my wife.
Yeah.
Well, that's not fair. I mean, come on now. And so, number 1, yes, Jeff does know everything.
No.
Number 2, our good friend Don Mann, who was a Navy SEAL for 20 years, and then he was 23 years CIA, worked with Jeff. Don always introduces Jeff by saying he's the smartest guy in the room, and he's got my vote.
My breadth of knowledge is about a mile wide and half an inch deep.
Yeah,
I know a little bit about a lot of esoteric subjects.
but listen, I mean, as smart as Jeff is, he's full of shit as well. But anyways, I'm just saying that in the most loving way I possibly can. But I do have a question here before we go into the next segment number 3. So, I mean, is Maduro a Nazi too? I mean, that's what this means, right? Anybody puts their hand like that? I mean, it put it in the live chat. If you think Maduro's a Nazi because he's doing the Heil Hitler here, put a 1.
Well, yeah. Actually, it could be, Stalin used to do those things, waving to the crowd too. He's more of a Stalin than a Hitler, I think.
It kind of looks
But
like
we'll
it
give
a
him
little bit.
We'll call him Hitler. What the hell?
Well,
if he was a conservative, the media would definitely be blasting that out right now.
That's true.
well, that's what I was going to ask. I was going to say, basically, if it's anybody but a woke progressive left-wing Democrat who does this, they're not. But when the left-wing wokesters do it, they're just, greeting their crowd.
They're just waving high.
That's what I thought. I just wanted to clear that up, make sure that I was, up to speed on that. We got a whole bunch of 1s. I mean, there is a whole bunch of irony here, right? How somebody become a fascist like a Nazi, but pushing for communism? Anyway, inquiring minds want to know. Segment number 3: Hezbollah's Venezuelan safe haven, jihadi ties, and the Iran axis. So, basically, all of the reports that I've seen, and I know that Khalid's seen more than I have, but basically Venezuela is, call it Hezbollah, IRGCs, and Iran's, I don't know what the right word is, home base, headquarters, Latin American headquarters. There's all kinds of Iranian cash going into Venezuela above and beyond the drug cash. You've got training camps hidden in the hills, and it's hidden because of the canopy of trees and plants that are over everything. And Maduro is basically, said, yeah, sure, come on in. And I got to ask Jeff a question. I'm going to finish this description, Jeff. Don't let me forget this.
Okay.
Why are people saying that online, reporters saying that Maduro has traded our uranium secrets to the Iranians in return for Iranian support? How the fuck does this guy have our uranium secrets, or is that just a pile of shit? So don't let me.
Well, it wouldn't be uranium secrets. I don't know if they mine uranium down there. They might, and we may have been someone who bought it in the past. He may have just basically been selling it to the Iranians instead. But yeah, he has no access to our nuclear secrets.
It's not hard to find. It must be subterfuge. Khalid, before I move on, I mean, is that just a bullshit red herring, or what do you think?
There might be some truth to it, because the amount of hacking that Iran has done and taught the Venezuelans to be able to do, there is the potential they've penetrated somewhere. You got to keep in mind, Venezuela, because of Iran, is in contact with China. They're in contact with Russia. And you've got access to all of the information they've got as well. So if they want to deal a blow to the US, transferring nuclear secrets to Iran is the biggest blow you could deliver. And for Maduro, that's big money. I mean, that is huge money to transfer that kind of information to Iran.
Yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense if there's any, legs to it whatsoever. But thanks to you and Jeff for a little bit of clarification there. So a couple more points on this. Basically, this isn't like some sort of side deal. I don't know about the nuclear stuff, but the deal between Venezuela and Iran and the money coming from Iran, this is not like we're doing some small transactions. It's a side gig or anything like that. This is this is the linchpin behind Maduro. You take away the Iranian support, the Iranian money, everything Iranian, even if they still have the drug money, Maduro is going down. Like he can't pull this together without the Iranians. And it's why I'm starting to think that this us against Venezuela is really us against Venezuela and Iran. So Iran's using Venezuela as a proxy to get to us. Seems to me we're doing it in reverse to a certain extent, which I'm not against whatsoever. But at the end of the day, the more that's going from Iran into Venezuela after we've moved all these military assets there, I think that it's got a pretty strong vibe that this is going to go kinetic, and hard to predict where things may go from there. So, Jeff, I don't know if you wanted to add anything else to the uranium stuff, but I have another specific question though. How does this Hezbollah hook up? Not the RGC, not the Iranians themselves, but Hezbollah working with Maduro. How does that give him extra leverage in this Essequibo tussle? Is it just like as advisors, or are these actually potentially boots on the ground going in and, kinetically engaging?
Well, Essequibo has been an issue for 150 years, almost 200 years now.
I'm told that's like 1 year in jihadi years.
It may be in jihadi years.
Yeah.
It was the Brits, it was with, Brazil and, even the Dutch, these companies. There was a whole bunch of people fighting over that part of the world. And there've been treaties, and then we don't like the treaty, we don't agree with it. But as far as the Lebanese angle, I'm not sure how directly they would be involved with that, unless they have people in Guyana, and they've got people all over the world.
Okay.
And they're using the Lebanese business community as their eyes and ears, as to be their intel people on the ground there, because the Lebanese, they have no resources of their own, so they are merchants, and that's how they survive. Whether it's merchants of products from the Middle East, oil, etc., or brokering deals back and forth, they are businessmen, they are merchants, and as such, they are everywhere, because that's how they are successful. But if you have Hezbollah inside of that merchant class, then you have people everywhere. And if you're Maduro and you want to know what's going on in West Africa, well, Hezbollah can probably tell you, because they're there. If you want to know what's going on in Guyana, they can probably tell you, because they're there. They're in, anywhere there's a business center, you're going to find Lebanese businessmen. It's like an intel network.
Yeah. So I'm thinking Klinger was Lebanese, right? So I'm wondering, I'm picturing these guys in dresses trying to get us
from Toledo, so it's a Mutton's fan.
Just ignore them.
They're not going to be a big force multiplier in a kinetic war. To take over that's going to be troops and tanks and things like that. Hezbollah is not going to be able to really help them with that. But what they're going to run into is, if we respond, then maybe they get Hezbollah to initiate terrorist attacks in the United States or other places to distract us from the fight in Venezuela.
Gotcha. So that actually, though, dovetails perfectly into my question for you, Khalid. What are the chances that the Iranians and Maduro in this tussle with Escobar, that it's the cartels, it's TDA, Tren de Aragua, and Hezbollah together in guerrilla warfare? So in and out, like not big scale like Jeff was just alluding to, but the in and out stuff. What are the chances of that happening? Because that seems to me like a logical step. But
that whole region's always been about guerrilla warfare. I mean, there's been very few kinetic wars that we've seen in that whole region. Most of what we've seen in Latin America has been guerrilla warfare. So if you look at it from a guerrilla warfare point of view, you've got the best asymmetric teams that you could be working with, from the cartels to Hezbollah to Iran. Iran's axis of resistance was put together by someone who literally wrote the playbook on asymmetric warfare for the Middle East. And to translate that to Latin America and be able to build that same type of network there. Because remember, Soleimani was killed, I think, 2013. You had almost 30, 40 years before that he could have built that network inside of Latin America.
That's a lot.
And being able to do that, because look, again, you have to come back to Colombian drug trade, Venezuelan drug trade, Mexican drug trade. Moving through that panhandle and coming into Latin America is not difficult for a Mexican cartel. And the Mexican cartels have all been trained in Ukraine during the Ukraine war. They've been fighting for Russia. And when you look at that link back, I mean, when you start to put the pieces together and go, wait a minute, look, the cartels went to Venezuela through Iran and fought for money inside of Russia against Ukraine. They've gotten proper military training. They understand how to operate like a unit now. It's like what Mike Glover says all the time. They understand small unit warfare now.
Well, go bigger. Instead of the small guerrilla stuff, go bigger. I've read it from a couple sources. I can't verify the veracity of it, but the suggestion has been made that if Maduro gets backed into a corner, that the Iranians will give the Venezuelans Russian jets, like fighter planes.
Apparently, what we've heard, I mean, this is something we're still investigating. It's why the next part of the series hasn't been put out yet.
I got you.
We have heard that Russia is supplying weapons to Venezuela directly. We have heard this is now the case, that Russia has been told that weapons into Venezuela, because if the U.S. decides to attack, Venezuela should be properly armed to put up. Basically, it's like what? Okay, let's roll it back to the 1970s. What happened to the Soviets in Afghanistan because of America? They want to pay back on the Western Hemisphere now. That in your backyard, we want to kick your ass.
That makes sense. Unfortunately, that makes sense. But Randy, coming to you at the end, I've got a big question for you. It's the toughest question, I swear to God, on this segment, but I know you'll knock it out of the park. But before I do that, I want to prime it by showing this. So we've increased the reward for Maduro to 50 million, and this is not too many months in the past. This is August 7th, 2025. So my question for you, Randy, is what's the end game here for us? Like, what is a realistic end game? Is it taking out Maduro, taking out Hezbollah, taking out the cartels, taking out TDA, taking Iran out of the equation? I mean, that you combine all that stuff together, it seems like a pretty heavy lift to me.
I was thinking that was like a dream list. As you were listing it out, I'm thinking, well, that's exactly what we should do. Now, I don't know that that's what we're going to do, but if we were smart and we were doing things for the right reasons, that's exactly what we would do. But, I can't say what they're, you look at this real shit show we've got going on. You know what I mean? We got Trump moving in one direction, half the government moving in the other direction, and facets from all over moving in different directions. So who really knows?
So just humor me. Is Trump playing, 5D chess like some people like to speculate?
I hope so. That's what we've seen from him so far, but hell, 50 million is a lot of money and nobody's turned them in yet. But same thing with bin Laden. I mean, it was more than that, wasn't it? It was somewhere around that figure. It was more, and it took a long time. So,
And no one cashed that check at the end. No one cashed that check at the end. They got bin Laden, but no one got the payout on it.
Too much.
That's probably how it usually goes, because really, whoever turned him in is probably dead anyway. And
he's sitting in a Pakistani jail right now. The guy who found bin Laden is actually sitting in a Pakistani jail. Oh,
really?
Right now.
So they didn't kill him, huh? And that wasn't the handler, right? The messenger, right?
No, that was the guy
correct?
who did the DNA test of his house, of his kids, and figured out these are bin Laden's kids.
Yeah.
And that's how they connected that house to bin Laden.
Okay, cool.
Well, I know we'd been watching it for a while, and they knew that a grown man was there that never came outside. But when you don't see him, you don't have 100%.
Yeah, for sure. It was still a very impressive operation, no matter how you cut it.
Oh, yeah, no, for sure.
So that's the end of the third segment. As per usual, we've got 5 segments for the night, so we've got 2 more to go. I just want to quickly mention that if you go to survivaldispatch.news, and when we're broadcasting, by the way, the stream will be right there at the top of the page. It wasn't last night. There was some technical hiccup. It wasn't on our end. It was on Substack's part. But as you can see, the video is there. So if you're ever looking for us, go to survivaldispatch.news. If we're not broadcasting, then either the current sit rep or special article will be at the top, like this one here. If you haven't seen our sit rep situation report, this goes with the broadcast each night, and there's a lot of information in our sit reps, and you'll see all of our sources at the bottom as well. So when you go to survivaldispatch.news, you can sign up for $7.99 a month or $74.99 for a year, which gets you 2.5 months for free. But the bonus to that for you, because I mean, this is, call it sales 101. You play to your audience, right? And you do more of what's good and what people like. We had an explosion on one Signal chat where there was just, and there is still an incredible volume in that channel called The Guardians, that you'd have to have a full-time job doing nothing but monitoring the channel to catch everything. That channel alone, the Survival Dispatch Guardian Signal channel, is an average of 12,000 messages per week right now. But we have 4 other channels, and we have another channel coming next week that I'll announce on Wednesday. But the other channels, just so you know what they are, we have a survival and prepping channel, which just exploded. We have a threat wire channel where we're discussing security bulletins, from Khalid and John Wheaton, and the videos that John's been doing. He's been doing a fantastic job. We have the SDENS channel, Survival Dispatch Emergency Notification System. So what that is, if the shit hits the fan and we send out emergency notifications to our guardians, it goes to your email, it goes to our Substack, it goes to the Signal channel. And if you have the POC radios, I know I have one sitting around here somewhere. Get several of them sitting around here somewhere. There it is. If you get the POC radios, by the way, then it goes to these as well. So for those of you who bought these radios, by the way, and you want to make sure that you're in the emergency notification group, send an email to support@poclink.com, POCLINK.com. They will get you hooked up. Their support now is running all of that end of things for us. I appreciate it tremendously. If you're interested in the radios, there's links down below, or especially in our sit rep. And I got to mention something before we pivot into segment number 4. We have an incredible number of extremely generous and caring people in our audience. And to give you an example, the topic of conversations came up earlier. I don't know if it was last week, this week. It's all blurred these days. But Randy was mentioning he's got his cell phone and he has POC radios, but he doesn't have all the backups that we recommend, right? 3 is 2, 2 is 1, 1 is none. One of our very, very kind members reached out to me and said, hey, I've got some brand new radios in the box. I'd like to send one to Randy. So I spoke to him today about the final ship, and he's sending a brand new Yaesu mobile UHF/VHF radio. Anybody who knows anything about radios, Yaesu, ICOM, these are top tier radios, and they are not cheap. And I'm not going to name the person, because if they want to announce it themselves, that's fine. I don't want to point a finger at them just in case they don't. But thank you very much. Randy's a really good friend of mine, and I honestly, I can't thank you enough for helping him out. We're going to make sure that he's hooked up with antennas, but that's who we have in our audience. And I'm proud of it, but I can't claim responsibility for it, if that makes any sense. I'm just the sheep herder. I just bring everybody together. They make the magic happen. So let's get into the 4th segment here, which is the human flood, migration, gang exports, border bloodshed. So when Maduro did this mass prison dump, which was TDA, he basically sent a whole bunch of wolves hidden in sheep's clothing with these people who walked across our border, thanks to Obama and Biden and Mayorkas and the rest of those clowns. And that in turn, of course, caused a massive spike in rapes from where they started to where they are. I mean, it's just insane how evil these guys are. The first time I heard of TDA was 2 years ago from Victor Avila. Victor's a friend of mine. Victor was one of the 2 ICE agents that was shot up in the Fast and Furious debacle. So him and Agent Zapata, they get this call, which was very strange, and it said, you need to go down to such and such a point in South Mexico. They were in Mexico City. Well, they took Highway 58, which is known as the Highway of Death. Nobody uses this highway anymore except for the cartel. So that was red flag number 1. Next thing you know, when they're out of the city in the countryside, they get surrounded by a bunch of SUVs and shot up hundreds of times. Agent Zapata died in Victor's arms. It's a miracle that Victor survived. Go back to 2012 news and you'll see that he was on all the talk shows and stuff. But Victor's the one who brought TDA to my attention. And he said to me, the biggest difference with TDA versus any of these other bad guys, they have zero loyalty. They will work for anybody who wants to put money in their pocket. And all the cartels know this. So they might be working for one cartel over here, another cartel over there, a Maduro behind this door, Hezbollah over there. They don't give a shit. And they're super vicious. And I'll tell you something that I haven't broadcast in a while for a reminder, but I'm going to do it again. Gas stations and convenience centers are top 5 locations for you to be accosted. If you run across anybody who looks like a TDA gang member, MS-13, whatever, do not lock eyes with them. Do not say anything to them. They go from 0 to 100 in the blink of an eye, and they will stab you or shoot you on the spot if they think you disrespected them. Distance is safety. The best fight is the fight that never happens. You don't want to tangle with these guys. The guy who has nothing to lose, doesn't give a fuck. He'll take you out, and it's just not worth it. Think of the consequences. So at the end of the day, there's a lot of bloodshed that's already happened, and there's probably a whole lot more. And I want to think that a lot of that, by the way, is been enabled by the Iranian money and the Hezbollah guys. And I've got to ask Jeff a question that's not in the brief. Jeff, when Hezbollah got hooked up with the cartels and other, gangs in that Latin American sphere, I read somewhere that they taught the Latinos, whatever you want to call them, stuff like how to make IEDs, how to make VB IEDs. Is that true? Like, how much knowledge did they pass on in that regard? Because somebody told me at one point in time that if you look at the tactics used by TDA, Sinaloa cartel, it's got Hezbollah's fingerprints all over it.
Yeah, sure. They did. They taught them tactics, and that the same tactics they used against the Israelis and against us when we were in Lebanon back in the 80s. But they weren't alone. I mean, a lot of intel services did too. I mean, the Cuban intel service went down and trained a lot of the FARC, and then the FARC passed that information on and those techniques and that training on to the cartels, and even went beyond the cartels. When Chávez came in, he basically kicked all the Western technical experts out of the country and replaced them with Cuban technical experts. And that's really kind of stupid because they're not very good at anything. So you get rid of Exxon and you bring in the Cuban National Oil Company. Yeah, because they are so good at finding and producing oil. But that's what you ended up with. And they brought in their experts on the power grid, which is why their grid and their power plants, everything were collapsing right and left in the in the early 2000s as well. But yeah, they share that information readily. It's it's just another commodity to trade.
Well, I appreciate that. Speaking of commodities, for you next year, Khalid, Victor is also the person who told me that we are the largest child sex trafficking country in the entire world. And it was pretty shocking when he told me this a couple years ago. And he said that, and I said to him, are you telling me that it's easier and more profitable for TDA and the cartels to smuggle kids into America and then export them to other countries instead of going direct to those countries? He's like, yeah, absolutely. I'm like, what the fuck? And then he got into the whole, I don't know the exact numbers. I know you do. And that's why I'm asking. He said that the average kid that gets sold into child sex trafficking generate something like $250,000 or $350,000 a year. They have a lifespan of about 3 years. At 3 years, they either commit suicide or the gangs or cartels kill them because they've been useless. They've been raped 15, 20 times a day at that point in time. So they get this recurring revenue, though, that they don't get out of the cocaine, right? I want to hear your perspective on just how big that piece of the puzzle is as far as funding all these bad guys.
Oh, it's unreal. I mean, this is one of the reasons we've been pushing so hard that you need to break these pedophile networks that operate inside the United States, because when you sell a child based on the age, you can get anywhere between $50,000 to $500,000,
Wow.
depending on the age of the child. And then they are traded amongst people. So one person has them for maybe 2-3 months, then they go, okay, I want another flavor, I want a younger model, I want a younger this, or I want this, and they sell them off to another person who's interested in pedophilia. These kids, in the span of 3 years, are traded at least 7 to 10 times.
Wow.
That's 7 to 10 different molesters that have their way with these kids. Then, if they stay alive, they're moved to a foreign country and turned into prostitutes. So the money never stops. The revenue generation from human sex trafficking never stops for the cartels.
So I think Victor said that, the TDA being so opportunistic is a good indicator how they'll take a buck from anywhere, and that they really like the child sex trafficking because of that recurring revenue. I don't know if you know this one or not. I'm just going to share this briefly. JJ Carroll knows about it. There was a cop in Tennessee, an assistant chief in a small town in Tennessee, who hooked up with our friend Craig Sawman Sawyer, who used to be Navy SEAL, and then he was Secret Service, or maybe not Secret Service, but he like State Department protection, something like that. He actually had to guard Hillary once. He said it was the most miserable job he was ever assigned while he worked for the government. But he helped this cop, and the cop managed to get 71 or 72 warrants from a judge to go and arrest like really high profile people. And I'm not going to get into all the gory details because things did not end well. I mean, really didn't end well. But what the intelligence showed is that they take containers full of women and children that they're selling into sex trafficking. They put them on barges. They bring them up the Mississippi Delta, because when you go down the Tennessee River and the Missouri River, you can get to about 60% of the lower 48. And there's nobody's patrolling these waterways. Nobody's out there looking for kids that have been trafficked. Whereas you got a box truck that's full of illegals or children being trafficked. The guy doesn't signal, or he's got a tail light out. Smokey Bear's pulling him over now, and poof, they break it. So staying on the water gives them a significant element of protection from being caught and, screwing up their import stuff. So they dump them at night, and it's crazy the evidence he had, by the way. So you got a 1,200 square foot home. It's a bungalow. And what you don't know is that below that's another 1,200 square feet. Below that's another 1,200 square feet. And below that's another 1,200 square feet. And it's a 4,800 square foot structure that looks from the outside 1,200 that has tunnels that lead a mile or two away. And that's how they distribute them, do that last mile thing. Khalid, I'm just curious if you have any updates, because when all of this went down, it was when the border was completely open. And a couple people told me that if Trump won and if the border was shut down, that bringing them in vis-a-vis these containers up the Mississippi Delta would be the primary way. And I can't remember the number, but does this sound realistic? Like 300 plus thousand a year?
Yeah. It's higher than that. It's higher than that, because you've got barges coming in every night. You've got barges coming into different cities every night across the seaways. And there's anywhere between 100 to 500 kids in every single one of those barges.
Wow.
And if you start thinking about the movement that's happening, and these are all coming to very, very wealthy people, very well-connected, high-placed people. Some are political families, some are business people. they're moving in through there. Once they move in and they are funneled out, the network then takes care of it themselves because everybody knows everybody. And you don't even need a dark web. I mean, people are sending pictures on WhatsApp saying, this is what I've got. Are you interested? How much are you offering? How do we get it to you? Are you going to pick it up or do we need to deliver? The movement inside the US is unbelievable because, again, there is no active move to stop pedophilia. There is no active move to stop it. So as long as that doorway stays open to them, they're going to keep generating money from it. Once that doorway closes, then all of a sudden the buyers are gone. The consumers are gone.
Okay.
You need to eliminate the consumer to eliminate the trafficking.
Yeah, for sure. I couldn't agree more. So, Randy, I'm curious if you think back to before the border was open, by the old Biden administration. I mean, these guys were exploiting our border left, right, and center with tunnels and all kinds of other means. What's going on in Texas right now? Like, do you hear any scuttlebutt? Do you hear any news specifically to Texas? Do you talk to anybody else from Texas indicating that these guys are still getting across the border, but it's more discreet and it's not bringing tons of people? Maybe it's the drug routes are still there. They have to be, right? People are still buying cocaine.
And there's still the cartel tunnels. I know they're constantly fighting that little battle on the border. And when they find some, they destroy them, but there's more out there. And they're probably building more right now. I mean, they've got plenty of money and plenty of time, and it was shocking. I remember I was on the show, one of them anyway, that you had, Craig Sawman Sawyer. And that was when he was telling us about the bus that he had in Nashville. And that's when he told us that he had discovered during this also that, we're using taxpayer dollars to do this. And that this is a human trafficking and sex trafficking ring that is on an industrial size level.
Yeah.
Which is why they are using taxpayer money. So I have no doubt that they're still coming in. We could shut the border so people walking across are not going to. But when you're smuggling people, it's just like drugs, right? They're not just going to let you walk out in the open.
Yeah.
So they're going to come through the tunnels. They're going to go up the Mississippi River, like you just mentioned, through all the tributaries so they can get to the rest of the country. And, it even goes to the point of, let's just take the P. Diddy case, right? The rumor is it's one of the reasons it had to burn in the LA fires, right? Not only did it get rid of all the evidence, but he had tunnels coming up into the bottom of that thing that connected into, now that would be in that area, but it's no different than the tunnels that are coming off the Tennessee River where they have a small structure on top. No different than the tunnels that are crossing the borders here in Texas, probably in Arizona and California as well. I have no doubt. I wish we were stopping this, but clearly, as it's already been pointed out, the biggest problem is the amount of very wealthy and very influential people that are a part of this.
Oh, yeah. So
So apparently that's why we can't bust it, because it would be too embarrassing. And then what would we do? Well, we would replace them, folks. They're just like a drug dealer now. I mean, in a good way, whatever natural, whatever legal businesses they're doing, there's somebody waiting to take over. Let's just, in my opinion, and I'm sure most of us that feel this way, let's go ahead and arrest these folks and do what needs to get done.
Yeah.
Because this country's not going to move forward in a positive manner until we get that one little thing tacked down. It doesn't matter how far we come with jihadists. It doesn't matter how far we come with drugs or anything else. Until we stop the kid trafficking and the human trafficking part in this country, it's not going to change.
Yeah.
Because those people will still be in charge. And guess who they're connected to? What I've mentioned all along. When you talk about these things, where it was the JFK assassination or even Trump's attempted or several of these other things, including September 11th, how many people have the power to tell the Secret Service to stand down? How many people have the control that it takes to make these federal agencies operate the way they do? Very, very few people on the planet have that kind of power and control. And until we get those folks, nothing is going to change.
So, Clete, I want to give you a chance to respond. And then, Jeff, I'm coming to you for one more question on this topic before we move on to the next segment. Go ahead, Clete.
If you remember, after the Epstein vote was put on the floor in the Senate, I think it was Mike Johnson that said it, that We cannot release the Epstein files without redacting them because the amount of political damage that would be done to the U.S. That statement in its own right is an indictment of the U.S. political system. Because if you're so worried about protecting politicians that you'll allow sex trafficking of children to keep going, that means there's something really wrong.
What did Julian Assange say? If the names got out in the Epstein list, 99% of Hollywood and 99% of Washington, D.C. is going down hard. That's bad. That's really bad.
Yeah.
So, Jeff, being in Arizona, and I haven't asked this question since the border's been closed, are you hearing any reports of, stuff that's more clandestine coming across the border like in years gone by, or is it just not even talked about?
Yeah, there's always stuff coming across the border. You can't close it all. And there's in Arizona and in Southern California, you'll find tunnels more than you will in Texas, because in Texas you have to dig it under a river. And false step and you're swimming or drowning. Here we don't have that problem. And so wherever you have border towns is probably where you're going to have tunnels, because they're going to go from somebody's basement under the border into a house on the American side or into the garage or something, because they need cover. But the sheer volume of people it's night and day. We had these places, I don't want to call them, they're almost like migrant camps where they would come across and be processed by NGOs and church groups and things. Most of those are pretty much gone. There was a big one here in Tucson. They had to shut it down. There was just no more people, which is a good thing. Right. But as far as the drugs and stuff, there's still so much money to make. They're going to get it across somehow. Even, you fly it across with a drone, you fly it across on a small plane and, drop the stuff out the window. They've done that for years. They can go back to doing that. So they'll find a way to get it in, but it's all greatly reduced.
That's mostly good news on that front. So we're getting ready to go into segment number 5, but before we do it, I've got a quick audience poll here. There's no way that I'm the only person who keeps looking at Clede thinking he's wearing a John Deere hat.
I know.
A John Deere hat. Put a one.
It does look
you
like
have to look real close. You're like, oh, that's not John Deere.
That's
not John Deere. It's a flame.
I saw the same thing.
At least 50 fucking times I've done that.
I almost asked him when he first came on the show, dude, where'd you get the John Deere cap? Then I looked and saw the symbol. I'm like, oh.
All right. So
to me, I thought it was for a propane company. It's like a little flame sticking up there,
If you're in our audience and you believe Agent 711 looks like he's wearing a John Deere hat, put a 1 in the live chat. If you don't think if that thought has not even crossed your mind, put a 0 in the live chat.
It's got to be greener to be a John Deere hat.
Well, yeah, but listen, we're having a good laugh here. Don't be that guy. Don't fuck it up.
Hey, I'm an Iowa boy. We had a John Deere factory across the river. Everybody had John Deere, but it was green.
Fair enough. All right, so moving into segment number 5, sanctions to showdown, essentially. The case for labeling Venezuela a terror sponsor, not just these FTOs, but an actual terror sponsor. So there was a 2024 think tank that came out with this blueprint to go after Venezuela in a number of different ways financially. And if they do get designated as a terror haven of some sort, I'm not sure what the official legal designation is, but it would basically green light, all kinds of things that we could do against Maduro and this, unholy alliance that he's put together. And that could be, anything from attacking, physically hitting stuff that can be proven is a terrorist operation that's pointed at us. I know the whatever you want to call them, the establishment folks, the wokesters, whatever, they don't think we should be even hitting these narco terrorist boats, but they're fucked in the head. That's all I've got to say on that. So at the end of the day, it seems to me like by declaring the entire country sponsor of terrorism, well, now we can treat them like almost the same thing as an FTO, foreign terrorist organization, which in turn gives us a lot more leeway. And I don't know where this is going, but it seems like with some of the recent Supreme Court decisions, we might actually get some sort of approval from that as far as, protecting the country under what was the War Act again? Do you recall, Jeff? The one that SCOTUS just ruled?
With the Enemy Aliens Act?
Yeah, that's it. So at the end of the day, there's some pretty high stakes stuff that is, kind of hanging in the balance here. And I guess my first question for you, Jeff, I'll come right back to you. Is there any chance that this kicks off a bigger type of confrontation that pulls in like Central America, the Caribbean, or is that thankfully not a prospect?
If you're talking about a kinetic war, would it spread to other countries? No, I don't think it would, because no one has the wherewithal to do anything about it. Guyana would be on our side, obviously. And I think, Panama, they have no dog in the hunt. They don't even have a border. The only one that has a border with Venezuela of any significance is either Colombia or Brazil. And I don't see either one of them dying on that hill. I don't even know that, I don't think we're going to invade Venezuela. But what I could see is we keep sinking boats. They get mad. They send their Navy out to confront our Navy. They lose a couple of ships and they call them back to port. It's going to be like the Falklands, the Argentines sorted out the Belgrano, and then it promptly got sunk by a British submarine, and then their Navy never showed up again. But what I could see it doing, what could happen to basically stick a finger in Venezuela's eye, besides, destroying some of their military assets, is going full in on Guyana oil development and basically saying, okay, the United States is going to safeguard the sea lanes coming out of Guyana. And we're going to have Western oil companies are going to develop that to let, because the country needs the money, it needs to modernize, and that takes, that costs a lot. And Venezuela would be powerless to do anything about it. And it would really be, basically spitting in their face.
How does Venezuela move its oil? Are there any pipelines, or is it too thick for pipelines? Or are they not?
Well, it's all by ship.
Okay.
Mostly out of Maracaibo, which is their big port. There's a big lake there. And some of it goes to, there's an island in the, I can't remember. It's just a big tank farm. Big tankers come, they load it and they take it off. And there's a lot of people are sanctioned, and their oil is, like I say, it's crap. But they sell it at such a discount. Countries buy it.
Okay.
But we used to buy most of it. It was refined in Houston. Chevron, owned it. And basically Chevron was Venezuelan for a while. Or not Chevron, was it? I can't remember which one it was. One of the big majors down there was a huge chunk. It was owned by PDVSA, which was the national oil company of Venezuela.
Okay.
But and they had refineries set up just to refine that oil.
Gotcha. So, Khalid, if we get the entire country of Venezuela designated as a terror haven, terror sponsor, whatever the case may be, any chance that we go after these training camps that Hezbollah has set up there?
Well, the key here is you've got to get them designated as a state sponsor of terrorism.
Okay.
Once you get them designated as a state sponsor of terrorism, then everything's on the table. Everything is then on the table.
That's where
you can put financial sanctions on them. You can put weapons sanctions on them. So no country can sell weapons to them. It's basically what you did, what the U.S. did to Iran, is they said you're a state sponsor of terrorism, and that shut the door for everything.
Okay. How about kinetic?
The key here.
You
can go kinetic. You can go kinetic. The key, look. Option one is going kinetic before you declare them a state sponsor of terror. If you do that, then you're drawing yourself into a bit of warfare, because the Venezuelans and the Iranians and the Lebanese that are in Venezuela are all masters of guerrilla warfare, and that's what you're headed towards. Just a couple of days ago, President Trump announced that he'd given the CIA authority to go after Venezuelan assets. which means you've opened up cyber warfare. You've opened up a lot of the different tools that the CIA has in their toolbox. That's step one before you go kinetic. That's step one before you go kinetic.
Okay.
I think Trump is thinking, because I've heard there's a negotiation going on between Maduro and the White House, that he resigns, and he resigns right now, and they allow a more U.S. friendly administration to come into power. Maduro has said that I want 2 years before I resign, and the U.S. said no, we're not accepting that. So there is a conversation of some kind going on between Venezuela and the U.S., but Trump is playing every card he possibly can. And I look at it kind of like how Pakistan's playing the game. We have played we moved our military, we set up against Afghanistan, and then we said, okay, let's talk. These are our terms, accept our terms, or we go to war. And we're going through that process right now. Okay, we talked to one country, we talked to another country, we talked to another country. People got involved, the conversation went on. That's exactly what's going on in Venezuela. The U.S. parked their ships in Puerto Rico and said, okay, if you think we're not serious, look at the ocean outside. We're ready to hit you now. So either you start to play ball like an adult and protect your civilians, or we go to war. And you will not like what happens when the U.S. military rolls in.
Yeah, that's pretty much a guarantee. So that's funny that you would say that, just as Randy comes back up again. Randy, the old adage, the guy who has nothing to lose is a scary guy. If we do all of this economic damage to Maduro, whether or not we go kinetic or not, what are the chances that he just goes all out, whatever he's got, to try and preserve his way of life and his money and so on and so forth? Because I think when Khalid just said he wanted 2 years, he's trying to set himself up for life with, billions of dollars stashed away here, there, and everywhere. But do you think he's dumb enough to go full balls to the wall if we knock him out at the legs as far as his money's concerned?
Well, when people get a little bit of power, right, they'll show you exactly who they are. And I think he's done that. So I would assume that he's going to double down, because he's not going to want to lose everything. Certainly if it gets to a certain point. You would hope not. But hey, according to that guy you kicked earlier, that Gary dude, we can't beat Venezuela anyway, and we haven't won a war in a long time. So we're in big trouble, because apparently they've got Iran, or not Iran, who do you say? Russia and somebody else's.
Russia and Chinese hypersonic missiles.
Hypersonic. So they're going to smoke our ships right off there. So we should look out real quick. And I'm just thinking to myself, dude, what a little peon. You really have no idea what you're talking about. And Putty, he tried to say we lost Vietnam and we lost Iraq and Afghanistan. Look, we didn't lose any one of those three. Yes, we played around too damn much. I will agree to that. And, the powers to be weren't like the soldiers on the ground. If they'd have just let the people on the ground take over and do what they're supposed to do, all that stuff would have ended a whole lot quicker. We probably would have lost less people, including Vietnam. But there's too many of those people making a lot of money during those conflicts. So we kept playing around with it.
It always comes back to money. Money.
It does. And that's what it is. Now Maduro's got a little bit of power, right? Got him a bunch of money. And we all know what that does to people. They lose their freaking minds. And unfortunately, when you're on the evil side, you don't ever get better, right? Things just seem to get worse and darker. Let's take Herod, for example, right? Herod was the king for the Jews when Jesus was born. He's the one that wanted all the males killed. Now, he only made it to 4 years until Jesus was 4, but he ruled for like 34. Now, he was the only Jewish king that never had any wars. He was a builder. However, this guy killed off everybody he ever knew that was ever close to him, because he was concerned about, he got, I guess, paranoid. And then he died a very old, diseased man with all kinds of problems, because nothing got better for him. And it's the same, it's the same old adage. I think once you take that path, there is no coming back, and you just get deeper and deeper and deeper as things go along.
True story. True story. I want to say thank you to Alaska, by the way, for the tip there. Khalid, I don't know if you know who Baked Alaska is, but he's a J6er. And I spent some time with him in Nashville working on this TV show. He is one funny guy. I've already mentioned the other guys. That's why I singled you out on that one. But either way, that's the end of segment number 5. And I think we could just sum up by saying, Venezuela is a storm that's brewing. There's multiple aspects to it. We've got oil, we've got drugs, we got cartels, we got TDA gang, we got Hezbollah, we got IRGC, we got the Iranian government. We potentially have Russians meddling in it from a weapons standpoint. I mean, it's a pretty volatile flashpoint that could go a number of different ways. It might amount
got the royal flush going, right?
Yeah. Or bust, right? It could go from nothing because of our military presence to balls to the wall or somewhere in between. So that's why we wanted to keep an eye on it for tonight. But this is, I swear to God, I know people are sick of me saying this, one of my favorite parts of the night.
Yeah, buddy.
3, 2, 1. All right, it is time for the Carnival hero of the day. This one is insane. They're right there, and it's not like the best rendering here. But when I first saw this video, I thought, what the fuck is Elon Musk doing in that mud puddle? Sorry, because it kind of looked like a
What's he got on? Does he have something on?
I'm gonna blow it up a bit.
Yeah.
This is a fucking incredible story, man. You want to talk a hero? This guy is a fucking hero. The write-up says he braved pain and danger to rescue an eagle stuck in the mud. Feeling only your own pain makes you merely alive. Feeling the pain of others is what makes you truly human. 59 seconds.
Oh, wow.
Hats off to this guy big time. Tell me that doesn't look like Elon Musk in a mud puddle.
It kind of does, man. That's some thick stuff right there, buddy.
Holy shit, it's Venezuela oil, Jeff. It's like real.
Yeah, here we go.
It's gotta be.
Oh, geez.
That's definitely the Venezuelan oil. Holy smoke.
Holy crap.
Man. I'm wondering how they saw it even.
Fucking A. Well, clearly they've got a drone. Maybe that's how they spotted it.
Yeah, or a piece of glass for sure.
Laundered.
Tell me that's not freaking cool.
That's cool.
Yeah, it is.
That's awesome, man.
That is absolutely awesome. So the next one, of course, the reader submitted story of the day, and I saw a ton of people tag me on X, and more people put it in our Guardian chat as well. It's 2 minutes and 49 seconds long. I know it's been a long episode, but I'm going to play the whole 2 minutes and 49 seconds because it's a potent warning to our country. We better get off our asses and do something about this friggin' engagement. By the way, the first person who sent this to me was Will Wood, one of our guardians, and that's who typically gets to me first, is one of our guardians. 2 minutes and 49 seconds.
Police Department after 26 years of full-time law enforcement service, and I dealt with representatives of EPIC many times when I was the sergeant for the Plano Police Department, the training sergeant for the Plano PD. There seems to be a general misunderstanding that we're talking about a plan to build an Islamic Sharia-friendly community. The EPIC neighborhood already exists in Plano. It's been there for nearly 12 years. With 74 residential properties, a massive mosque, schools, a medical clinic, and multiple businesses. It also has an office of an Islamic financing institution called the UIF Corporation. The UIF Corporation is not a bank. It's a Michigan-based corporation whose publicly stated purpose is to, quote, engage in financial transactions that are Sharia compliant, end quote. Those are their words, not mine. The local government officials south of here have known for years that only Muslims can purchase homes inside that neighborhood. You have to be a member of their mosque to live there. The first house built in that neighborhood was built right next to the Plano Police Academy. It's a huge structure with 2 separate front doors. The rear of the property is a few feet from a large outdoor warning siren. The house has a large second-story platform overlooking the restricted access parking lot where the police department stored specialized vehicles, bomb trucks, bomb disposal equipment, and the SWAT team's armored vehicles. I am a court-recognized expert in SWAT team tactics and procedures. That house has all the hallmarks of a fortress and a command post. The rear of the house looks a lot like an observation post and a shooting platform. Why would somebody choose to build a house so close to a giant warning siren and a police training site? Why would someone build a huge platform overlooking all those specialized police emergency vehicles? The first owner of that house is a leader in the Epic neighborhood, and he is also the co-founder of the Yaqeen Institute for Islamic Research. And I urge everyone to visit their website and read what it has to say about instituting Sharia law. This is not a matter of radicals hiding in plain sight. They're not hiding. They've been open about their beliefs and their intent. Local government decision makers have failed to ask hard questions for fear of negative publicity and being labeled as bigots. I'm not here to spread innuendo or to make unfounded accusations. I'm asking everyone to simply look at the evidence and the confirmed facts that are already in existence. Thank you for your time, Judge.
Amen to that. I don't know if any of y'all want to weigh in on that before we move on, but Randy, you got anything to say? It's in your backyard, brother.
Yeah, I saw this yesterday or the day before, man, and it just still blows me away that we're not, this is the state of Texas, and we're not doing anything about it. You know what I mean? And it's just like that. You wouldn't, they wouldn't allow the mafia or any other kind of organized crime build an operation right there next to the police academy or the police station. They wouldn't do it. But here we're going to allow them to do it. And, again, like you said, if you go to their webpage, and what we've been saying all along, they're telling us exactly what they're going to do and what their plans are and who they are. So let's take them at their word.
It's not rocket science at all.
Yep.
One point, though, I'm not talking about the building being next to the police station, all that. That's obviously bullshit. But the company that he says is not a bank, it's a company out of Michigan. That's not as sinister as people think, because under Islam, they are not allowed to charge interest on a loan. It's against the Quran to charge interest. So they set up their own kind of parallel banking system where you can get a loan, but you don't pay interest, but there's usually an additional fee up front for the for the money, a processing fee of some sort, but there is not traditional interest, and as such they can't borrow money, or not supposed to borrow money, from a bank or savings loan or anything else that's going to charge interest. It's against their religion to pay interest.
Yeah, well,
so that's not a big deal. That's just them doing business.
Man, I could roll with this, but I'm not going to. Let's get into the conflict.
I don't like paying interest either. That doesn't make me an Islamic terrorist. That just means I don't like paying interest.
All right. Conflicted question of the night. Samantha's patience was at an end. She was surrounded by capable men that were unwilling to help her. She wanted her husband found at any cost. What could you do to convince others to risk their lives for your sake? And Jeff, I'm going to come right back to you. So let me throw you center stage. There you go.
Well, I'm assuming, is it my safety or it's her safety? Or that, because
I was just wondering, wait a minute, Jeff, are we the husband? Because of that last part, it did say.
Yeah, I was kind of confused.
Yeah.
Let me read.
You can convince people to risk their lives to help her, not me.
Samantha's patience was at an end. She was surrounded by capable men that were unwilling to help her. She wanted her husband found at any cost. What could you do to convince others to risk their lives for your sake?
So for my safety.
From Samantha's point of view.
Sake, for their sake.
For her safety, maybe.
Sake, not safety. S-A-K-E. Sake.
Oh, sake. Either. Okay, but it's not my sake. It's her sake.
Yes, for her sake. Yes.
For her sake. Okay. What I would, if I was going to do that and I was really committed to helping her find her husband, and I would get other guys to say, okay, if we can find this guy, he's another strong male for our group. And he will be beholden to us because we saved his ass. And she will be beholden to us because we saved her husband. And they can become strong members of the group and less likely to leave us. That's the only reason I could see, convincing people. You're just gaining force.
Yeah, that's pretty logical. I just want to quickly say, we got a couple of people just mentioned that MTG resigned. I don't like her, but this is not a good thing. I'm telling you what's coming next. They're going to install a Democrat in her place, and you will have dead nuts even numbers in Congress, or at least in the House of Representatives. So this is not something to be happy about, because this is all political theater, and they're using this to fuck up the midterms. Mark my words. So with that being said, Khalid, coming to you next. You got anything else that you can think of that she could argue a leg to stand on to help her go get her husband?
Well, I would go to the wives. I mean, if I was her, I'd go to the wives and say, listen, if you were in my position, what would you want? What would you do?
Good point.
Yeah.
Why ask the men? Ask their wives. If it was your husband that was missing, what would you want?
That's a brilliant answer, and that's precisely why I've been telling Jeff and Randy to stop talking shit about you when you're not on the podcast. That's a great example right there.
Hey, you know who the shit talker is. You
run the risk that you talk to a woman who doesn't like her husband, and she goes, "If my husband was gone, I'd be having a party every day. I don't want the son of a bitch back."
Yeah, but see, Jeff, the problem is when the world ends, I mean, the shit could be on your side of the world too.
Oh, I know.
I mean, it could be your husband tomorrow.
Questionable.
So you got to take that. You got to take that thought from the point.
Time out. Did you see Jeff had a husband? You just said could be your husband. I need context.
We're talking from.
I don't know.
We're talking from Samantha's point of view again.
All right. You don't fucking know these days, right? So, Randy.
No, Jeff's not woke yet. Jeff's not woke yet. So.
No, I was saying the wives may not want their husbands back, and therefore they say, well, count your blessings, he's gone.
Yeah,
right.
That's true. But again, it's a question you got to ask them.
Yeah.
So I was going along the lines of what Khalid said. Basically, how you would do this. First of all, right, this is afterwards. And like even me, I've got 3,500 homes in this neighborhood. If something like this really happened, there's not going to be half those people left. So you're going to have a small group. And even if you don't, even if they're all still here, I've got a small group like most of us do. And we're together, right? We're all in this together. And the fact is, just because it's her husband this time doesn't mean it won't be one of us next. You have to realize we're all in this together. And if we're going to leave him out there, then you got to realize if you're the one left out there next, no one's coming. So that would probably be the only way you're going to, and then you have to evaluate. It would come down to the situation. Okay. How did he disappear? What's going on? Who has him? If a group has him, what is it going to take to get all that done? And then you go through all the men you have and determine, because you're probably not going to want to walk out with every man to go do this. So you would, build you a team, and then you would go get the guy. So in hopes that it happens to any of us later, which very well could happen, that we all are on the same page.
Well, so I'm going to kind of split this thing right down the middle here between y'all. And I want to bring this back up again just so you can look. So Samantha, she's not bad looking. Like, she's kind of cute, right? So I think the way that she gets them to do it is she goes to all the wives and say, you either convince your husbands to help find my husband, or I'm going to fuck every last one of your husbands. Try that on for
Oh, shit.
I'm just saying. She doesn't.
Well, I'm just going to tell you, mine carries a gun. So
she doesn't have to follow through or anything like that. You just got to make the point. She's a good looking girl. Could make it happen. Stranger things have happened. So anyway, a quick reminder, head on over to survivaldispatch.news. You can sign up for a free account, but the paid account, $7.99 a month or $74.99 a month. which gets you, or a year, pardon me, gets you 2.5 months for free. You get a ton of stuff, but it's our community that you get to tap into. So in addition to the 5 signal chats I already mentioned, what you also end up with is a group of boots on the ground around the entire freaking country that can tell you exactly what's going on there and basically cut the legacy media and even social media crap off at the knees by saying, yeah, that ain't happening, or it didn't happen that way, or this is what's really going on here. And that's just an incredible aspect of the community that we've got, the Survival Dispatch Guardians group. It's pretty phenomenal. And stay tuned on next Wednesday. I'm going to announce another channel that'll be number 6. And then we're probably going to cap it at number 7. And I'll announce that over Christmas. But before then, Khalid, get this into you. So let me see if I can change up my cameras here so everybody can see us a little bit better. So this is the cup holster, okay? So let me take this training pistol out of there. So basically there's a magnet in here that pulls your slide to one side. You can see that there's like these shims on it, okay? And you can change them so that when you put this in your cup holder, there's some interference. It's snug, all right? Get this into you. We're going to have a competition on the Wednesday at SHOT Show in Las Vegas with a Mantis Titan X. So this is a training pistol for Mantis X. It hooks into an application that times you, tells you how accurate you are, all that good stuff in a cup holster like this, okay? And the guys, Craig from Vets Tactical is building a chair that you sit in that simulates being in the driver's seat. And whoever can draw the fastest from the cup holster and put 6 shots on target will have a sound activated target. If you hit it with the laser, will be crowned as the cup holster champion. First time ever, first Angel cup holster champion. But are you ready for this? It's a competition to see who can beat my good friend Keith Graves, Christian Warrior. So Keith is going to be with us in the booth, and this is your chance to try and beat a hardcore SWAT team leader, 30-year SWAT team leader, sniper, firearms aficionado. This is your chance to show just how dang good you are by taking on Keith Graves. It's going to be epic. It's going to be absolutely epic. And by the way, these things here, it's amazing how quick you can pull a pistol, a commie tube. This is not a real gun. This is plastic, okay? Don't give us another fucking strike. So anyway, if you go to vetstactical.com, use the discount code SD10. We don't get paid affiliate money. Craig's very generous. He gave us a stipend that's helping defer costs, but you'll get 10% off. You'll be supporting an American company, and these are extruded in his shop. So this doesn't get more American made than what he's done. And with that being said, obviously got to give a shout out to our sponsor, main premium sponsor. You can see Randy's got a Carnival hat on. These guys are hardcore Americans, and their product is better than anybody's out there. Nobody has cracked the code like they have. This is 100% American beef, chicken, pork, no antibiotics, no mRNAs, no histamines. The bag's made in America. The O2 absorbers made in America. They just came out with a code red subscription for beef only, because their subscriptions in the past have been primarily beef, but you also got a bag or two of the other ones, right? They've got one that's all beef now. They listened. You guys asked for it. They gave it to y'all. I briefly alluded to what they did with Tyrone Woods' truck and restored it. Tyrone Woods, who died right here at Benghazi. I got a Benghazi shirt on and should be alive, but he isn't. They restored his truck after it was wrecked. Mike Glover bought the truck from the insurance company, teamed up with Carnival. It's an incredible tribute to Ty Woods. You'll hear more details directly from them next week. I don't want to steal their thunder. What I do want to do is tell you these guys walk the walk, talk the talk. They're very generous. If it wasn't for them, our software bill alone would crush us. And we don't get affiliate commission, but when you use the code EATMEAT, all one word, and get 10% off, they know that you came from our audience, and it means that they're getting some return on investment by helping us with expenses. So that's the end of that. And I appreciate all y'all who hung out long enough to listen to that little spiel at the end. Other than that, I will be back on Sunday night, 7 p.m. regular time for the Sea Heaven show. It's on my Substack. So letter C Heaven, just like my name there, Chris Heaven, seaheaven.substack.com every Sunday night, 7 p.m. Eastern. I do a show of all crazy stuff from Steve Inman. It'll put a smile on your face. It'll make you laugh. Your week will start out good. Then we'll fuck it up on Monday when we start talking doom and gloom with the next episode of the Long War series. And Randy, take it away.
So I just wanted you to make sure you saw this comment over here. It came in after your conflicted question answer. And Robert Larson says, Chris's pre-workout's kicking up again.
Man, you know,
I think you had one female said that's the mode she would take.
Hey,
that's the tactic she would use.
I'm just saying, you know, what's the saying? When they go low, we go lower.
Yeah, that's right.
Or something like that. Whatever.
Something like that.
Yeah. Now I'm feeling like George Bush. You know, fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on me.
Yeah.
He kept saying the same fucking thing. Oh my God. All right. Well, listen, I appreciate y'all on the panel as usual tonight. It's great to see you, Cleet. We're very thankful that you're okay and that you're still amongst us. We can't wait for you to get here we got screens flipping around here. We can't wait to get you. Look at that. What the fuck? Just as I said that we're thankful Cleet's okay. Poof, gone. I don't like that at all. We'll give him a second here and see if he can recover and get back in again. If some jihadi cocksucker just hijacked my friggin' podcast while we were saying we were thankful for Khalid to be alive, he
may have lost power too, and I was wondering if they didn't switch that up to keep him off the show.
Here we go. I'm telling you, here we go. Check it out. Boom. There he is.
Hey.
Man, we were worried that jihadi's got it.
No way.
No, we had a hiccup.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Everybody can sleep well. Between now and Sunday night show, please like, share, comment, subscribe. God bless America.
God bless.
Enjoy the closing video. It's a brand new one.
325,000 children have been lost. They've been allowed to be trafficked all across our borders. Many are working as slaves in different parts of probably this country and probably many others.
¿Y cuántos años tienes tú?
Vengo a las 4 y acabo a las 2 de la mañana.
325,000 children are missing. Many are dead. Many are involved in sex operations.
Hey, where are you guys moving these kids to in this black car?
Where are you taking these kids to? 325,000 children are missing.
How about that?
November 5th is the single most important day in the history of our country. I believe that with all my heart.
I will urge Congress to ensure that anyone caught trafficking children across our border receives the death penalty.